In my previous presentation, Law by Consent, I touched on the concept of natural and artificial law. For the purpose of this presentation, law means the natural law of the universe, the universal law, to which we as individuals are all subject. All of our actions incur a response from the universe. All are equal under the natural law. Karma is an Eastern word which refers to the natural law. What goes around comes around is the fundamental premise of karma and of energy transference, incidentally. I make the necessary distinction between the natural law and the man-made law, which in this presentation the artificial man-made law is referred to as the law system. Natural law is working on a fundamental level of energetically attracting experiences for us to overcome for our self-development and our conscious expansion or evolution. This knowledge and higher conscious perspective is ancient knowledge which has been all but lost, save for a few guiding lights throughout history and secret societies which again have become infiltrated and misdirected. Whilst the symbolism we currently have available to observers the truth of our history, heritage and origins, it would be keen and wise to be cautious about the various symbolism presented. I have mentioned previously about there being the presence of an artificial system and a natural system at work in our reality. Take law as an example, and as in the axiom, as above, so below, we can forecast that artificial and the natural exist on the higher planes also. It is therefore necessary to be able to discern both natural or positive or balanced symbolism from the negative or artificial system symbols. At our current level of collective consciousness within society, it is necessary to make distinctions about light and dark, positive and negative, then also between natural and artificial states. These words all evoke and describe different states of being, but meaning can change as we take a higher perspective view of them. I'll discuss this again at a later stage of this presentation. Negative doesn't necessarily equate to bad or evil, although we use such words interchangeably in common language. Negativity can be dispassionately viewed through the lens of polarity. For example, a magnet has 2 points of attraction, both positive and negative. Neither is bad or evil, they are just an opposing expression of electrical magnetic attraction. Similarly, a battery cell, a single unit of electrical energy or power, has both a positive and a negative terminal. When the positive and negative charge is operating correctly, energy flows and the lights go on. Polarity is a key issue in healing one's own circumstances and in overcoming the dark, or the shadow self. Archetypes are symbolic expressions of conceptual thinking. They are tried and tested visual or poetic concepts which have survived through history and continue to permeate through our conscious thought and therefore manifest in our various applications of ourselves, in our creativity and expressions of self when communicating with each other to convey our meaning. Symbolic language or conceptual communication can be extremely powerful, and we see the use of it throughout the history of art, ancient philosophy, mythology, religious texts, scripture, music, poetry, other creative writing, and especially occult or esoteric disciplines. This library of archetypes has spanned generations, and indeed, I believe it reaches into the higher conscious mind of us all, and is a source which we all draw on when we connect to the higher aspects of ourselves naturally, such as beginning the creative process or taking a creative project through to its tangible fruition. I'd also like to say that one might not necessarily realize he is drawing down archetypal expressions. It is almost an intuitive action rather than an intentional act, and therefore we all collectively intuitively connect to the language of archetypes and symbolism. One of the most rich and accessible sources of archetypal expression is in the art and symbolism of the tarot. It is absolutely loaded with symbolic representations, and I refer specifically to the deck of cards I'm most familiar with, which is the Rider-Waite deck. It is the populist and common tarot deck within our mainstream society. It is preceded by many other versions of this concept of storing vast knowledge, guidance and wisdom through symbolic archetypal imagery within a simple, concise and transportable format. The images have changed and mutated somewhat, but the essence of the original message still remains, and I believe it stretches as far back as Egyptian times to the knowledge of Thoth. And this is where the seed of the Kabbalah or the Kabbalistic doctrine sprouts from, and in fact most of the religious texts surviving on planet today have grown out of this period of enlightenment. Sadly though, the original texts were corrupted from the source teachings, and therefore all religious texts carry within them the seeds of distortion, and this also filters through in modern tools of knowledge such as the Tarot Wisdom, Bible, Kabbalion, etc. Please refer to 78 Degrees of Wisdom by Rachel Pollack for a comprehensive analysis of tarot symbolism and archetypes. If you are new to the kinds of ideas in this presentation, then I urge you to approach with a non-judgmental, open-minded attitude. Some of these perspectives may be challenging to you depending on your own upbringing or social conditioning, etc. I always say, take what resonates for you and leave the rest on the back burner. It may come to fruition for you at a more relevant time on your path. You were drawn here by the universal law of attraction, and my guess is that you have already, to some degree, come into realization of some of these ideas yourself, and now you can confirm it by your reality showing you in manifest form. Your thoughts create your reality. Sometimes it's incredibly subtle and you feel like you might need a microscope to view the nuances of the universal language of signs and symbols, and sometimes it's just unmistakable. There's just no denying it. It hits you in the face. Anyway, these signs show you that you're on the track to higher ground, and in fact becomes a higher consciousness of living in the light of full knowledge and awareness. This is the universal field with which we are interacting in every moment. It is highly responsive. The law of attraction is part of universal law. It states that like frequencies attract. It is the universal mirror at work, and is the method that the universal law depends on to show us who we are and what we are like, so that we can become consciously aware of that fact to facilitate a necessary change in behavior. This supports the consciousness to continue evolving itself back to its original state. Our original state is that of an individuated fractal piece of the whole, the source energy. A waveform or a signature essence, a sine wave. If you sign your legal form to identify and authenticate yourself. When we evolve up the dimensional scale of consciousness, we return back to ourselves as part of the energy whole, but with an individual conscious awareness, which is an individual radiation energy encryption, your energy signature. Signature, signature. When we first entered this current state of being, this incarnate reality and individuated expression of self as part of this energy structure called the time matrix, we gave up that awareness of our connection to the greater whole as a way of experiencing a reality that would bring soul development to ourselves and greater evolution for the universal expansion as a whole. Science is also prone to belief systems and to the manipulation of its practices and conduct. Science is conducted by scientists, and they are human with ego the same as anybody else. I have the utmost respect for genuine scientific exploration. By that I mean the honest exploration of curiosity for discovering evidence which proves a theory to be true, or attempting conclusively to describe the nature of our reality, for the purpose of our greater collective understanding and advancement of our species. It is apparent, however, that due to obstacles of a practical or systemic nature, including economics, process-led peer reviews, again subject to manipulation by money, funding by an influential and overbearing established order where an elite control structure oversees and manages any new knowledge or research of any real significance, human advancement is seriously compromised. The real advancements are controlled, hindered, or confiscated. The purchasing and shelving of anything significant to human development through the patenting process is a sure way to take control of developments. Mainstream scientists still hold a belief about the way things are, just like anybody else. Because they don't have all the answers, they don't know what they don't know, and some still disregard the creative, spiritual, or experiential aspect of our humanity, our consciousness, which has been present in some way throughout our entire history. Ironically, I grew up an atheist with respect for and enjoyment of sciences, but it was by expanding my perception of the law enforcement enough to see through its manipulations, its bars, its barristers, which led me to question everything in my reality, much like a child waking from the lie of Santa Claus. And in fact, I did a complete overhaul of my entire perspective and conscious perceptions. I value the premise that scientists hold up to be the defining principles of their practice, but mainstream science refuses to take an open and honest look at the other human perspectives and thereby effectively cuts itself off from them, meaning it views through a distorted lens of archaic, materialist, reductionist values and hand-me-down systems and process of that same order, which is inherently corrupt, thereby diverting us from the truth about the nature of reality. Being naturally inquisitive and never taking things on face value, and in the spirit of scientific practical application, I began to open up to the possibility of a spiritual self-perspective, and explored it on the levels which I could that were not constrained or rigidly analytical. My approach was of a more observational and experimental inclination to testing out spiritual perspectives. Needless to say, a whole new earth of perception and conscious awareness has opened up in response to my openness and genuine search for the truth. The truth will set you free.